Great, that's done. Fantastic. Wonderful. Got it. Okay, great. I don't know how many people come today because, in between Yom Tov and everything, but at least there's one. At least there's two of us. That's already good. Okay, fantastic. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so let's begin. We'll start off with the prayer. So we're going to share screen. Here we are. Is that doing it? Did I do it right? I don't know.
Oh, I
don't think so. No, I don't think I did. Do share screen. That one. There. Ah, yes, that's better. Okay, very good. All right. ריבונו עולמים, אדוני אדונים, אב רחמן וסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה בשתחוויה, שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומה חיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה, על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ועל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לביניך, וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבבך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח, לפני כיסא כבודך, כרך ניחוח, ותאציל עלינו, אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם, וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבן לקשל בדברים אלו, ובזכותם תראה עינינו במה שאנו לומדים, כמאמר נעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיניי והביט הנפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני ייתן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לו רצונים מפי, ויגון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Amen. Can you rtzon?
Amen.
Amen. So let's just get to our. Now, wait a minute. I need the. That's what I need. I need the material. Right, here it is. To share again. Why won't it let me do? Ah, here we go. Press the wrong button. Show all windows. There it is. Found it. Great. Wonderful. Okay, so this is an article of Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag, and he wrote actually about 4 or 5 articles all on the same verse. And this is one that I've not really come across before, and I thought it was really wonderful. So it's the one I really wanted to learn with you today. And he asks a question. He goes like this. Hine katuv shuvah Yisrael ad Hashem Elokecha ki kashalta bavonecha. This is the beginning of Haftorah. Okay, why it's called Shabbat Shuvah in the first place. Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God, for you have stumbled in your sin. Mufarish Haradak, so that's Rabbi David Kimchi, explains Ki kashalta bavonecha, that you've stumbled in your sin. Ki ata ro'esh nichshalta bavonecha, that you can see that you've stumbled in your sin. Ki ein mekimecha mimichsholecha ela tshuvatcha elav. And the only thing that's going to raise you up from your stumbling is your tshuva to God. Amor ad kamo el, so that it says that return of Israel up to ad, normally say up to, okay? But here it says no, it really means to, towards. Amor Chazal, and furthermore, the sages said, Dolat tshuva shmagat ad kisei kavod. In the same way that the sages said that tshuva is so great that it reaches the throne of glory. Shne'emar ad Hashem Elokecha, up to the Lord your God. So before we sort of go into the article, I just sort of wanted to just look at this whole language also of avonecha, your sin. We have three main words for sin, but we've got a few others, but you've got hate, you've got avon, and you've got pesha, okay? And a hate seems to be more appropriate for stumbling in a way, because a hate means something you do by accident. It means to miss the mark. That's what a hate really is. You know, if you imagine a bullseye, a target, okay, and you shoot your arrow and it goes astray, okay? You didn't intend it, you missed the mark, okay? And avon is a sort of, the word for avon means, from the word ivut, means distortion. And what actually happens is that when we've missed the mark a few times, the perception of how we're seeing reality becomes distorted. So although we might not consciously want to sin, we're seeing reality in a distorted way. And that's what an avon actually is. It's the consequence of a few sins, a few chata'im, okay? And that leads to the avon. It leads to that distortion. And I think that's very interesting because Rabbi Ashlag wrote a letter in which he does say that even on a hate where you absolutely didn't mean it, okay, it was just a mistake, you've still got to do shuvah. And the reason why we've got to do shuvah on a mistake is for exactly that reason, because otherwise the chata'im tend to pile up and cause us a distortion in our we seeing reality. And that's actually the real issue. That's actually the real problem, is become the chata'im sort of pile up and distort reality. And I find this very interesting also, for example, when we're talking about all the al-hates that we say on Yom Kippur, you know, there's a whole list of them. And a couple of years ago, I sort of really spent time actually looking at them and what they were all about. And it's very interesting to me that the vast majority of them are about different aspects of our relationship between ourselves and our fellow human being. Then most of them are about our relationship between ourselves and our fellow, you know, more like ethical or subtle aspects of behavior. And I think it's interesting that it says al-hata'im or al-chait shechatanu, that we do tshuva on really quite subtle aspects of our behavior, which we probably wouldn't even notice normally. And to actually sort of bring them up to the surface and say, do make a tshuva on them, is really helping clean up our acts between ourselves and our fellow man. And they're actually worth looking at, you know, because, you know, some of them are outstretched throat and haughtiness and, you know, einayim ramot, you know, what are they to actually mean? Try to sort of find some sort of explanation. I know there's one in, I think the Targum Press, whatever. I've got a couple of English translations in my computer, and I'll put them on the WhatsApp list afterwards. They're actually helpful because these are not things that we actually most probably aware of even. But if we make tshuva on those sort of little errors, we stop the distortion in our thinking and our reality. Okay, and that's really what we want to stop. Okay, because then, of course, if we carry on with distortions, eventually we get to active transgressions. So these things sort of progress one to the other. Okay, v'yesh lavin. So we want to ask the question: Ma'oki kashalta ba'avonecha. What does it mean that you've stumbled in your iniquity, in your sin? Mashmash Adam asayid. he did something and he failed. There was a problem that he did not foresee the outcome from the beginning. Because that seems to be kashalta, like you stumble, okay? To stumble, like we stumble over a stone in the street, okay? Because we don't notice it, okay? We fell over, all right? If we'd have seen it in the beginning, we wouldn't have fallen over it. That seems to me the idea of stumbling. So if Adam עושה עוונות, איזה כישלון היה כאן? But if a person's actually going to do avonot, like we said, it's not a chait, it's an avon. What stumbling are we doing here? From the a priori, he's going to do something which he knows in advance he shouldn't do. He's going to transgress on something which he shouldn't do. So it seems to be like a sort of a contradiction here, because when we stumble, it means that, well, we didn't foresee it, but we're not so much to blame because we didn't foresee something. We just tried and we failed. Also, we need to understand, why does it say to the Lord your God in the singular? Okay, normally we relate to the whole of Knesset Yisrael together, but the prophet is telling us to the Lord your God. And what does he mean that the shuvah can reach to the kisei kavod? What does that mean? So Rabbi Ashlag is looking at this paragraph of the piece from Hosea and the explanation by Rabbi David Kimchi, the Radak, and he's saying, okay, they've got a few questions about it. So how does he look at it? He says, that you stumbled in your sin. He's not talking about all your avonot. He's talking about one, okay? הכוונה על או עוון הראשון לעץ הדעת, שבו חטא אדם ראשון. He's talking about the first iniquity, the first sin of the Adam when he ate from the tree of knowledge. What went wrong? He listened to the advice of the snake. God had already told him not to eat from the tree of knowledge. And he listened to what the snake actually advised him. And what the snake actually told him, that if he was to do work of eating from the tree of knowledge, but it would be for the sake of giving pleasure to the Creator, it would be okay. That would be permitted to eat. Okay? The snake told him, and this is all from Rabbi Ashlag's explanation in the Panim Me'irot U'Masbirot, a wonderful explanation of what went on in the Garden of Eden. Incredible. So this is brought it here in short, okay? So what the snake said, listen, he said that God told you not to eat from the tree of knowledge. That's only in your present situation, when you're not ready to eat from it. But if you work on yourself and you intend that your eating will only be for the sake of giving, then for sure, God didn't forbid you to eat from the tree of knowledge. So what is he doing? He's saying, oh yeah, God told me not to eat from the tree of knowledge, but the snake knows better. That's basically what the sin was. Okay, the snake knows better. And here, Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag is not dividing between Adam and Eve, because although Eve was the first one, Adam joined her in the sin. So he's just looking at Adam as the whole here. Okay, so basically what went wrong? Adam knew perfectly well what God had told him, but he said, but the logic of the snake is better. That was the stumbling, that was the mistake, that was the what went wrong. He understood that he wasn't going to do an action against God's will, on the contrary. According to the counsel of the snake, he's going to do a tremendous tikkun. Because, and this is written there, that he understood, and Eve understood, that God can't make anything which is intrinsically bad in his world. And therefore, if we intend our receiving only to be for the sake of giving, that will rectify the tree and that will make it good. So that from this he said, wow, Hashem God would take pleasure from this action. And this was the stumbling block that Adam fell over. Okay, he didn't mean to go against God's will in that sense, because he understood that he'll be doing God a favor. But the stumbling block was that he listened to the counsel of the snake. He thought, because the snake told him that this work of eating from the tree of knowledge is counted as a mitzvah, and not as a avera. But ultimately, he did see that he sinned. As it's written in Genesis, and the eyes of both of them were opened. And they knew they were naked. And Rashi says, well, they knew they were naked. Even a blind man knows when he's naked. What does it mean they knew that they were naked? Mitzvah achat hayta biyadam v'nit'altalu himeno. They had one mitzvah to fulfill. That was the only mitzvah, okay? They had one positive mitzvah and one negative mitzvah. The positive mitzvah was to guard and to eat from all the trees in the garden, but not from the tree of knowledge. That was one positive, to eat from all the others, and one not to eat from that tree. That was all they had. And they became naked from that mitzvah. That's what it means. Suddenly they realized they were naked from that mitzvah. Suddenly he saw he shouldn't have listened to what the snake said. Even though the snake gave him to understand that whatever he's telling him, it's all for the benefit of God, not for his own self. As the snake said, if you do the preparation, and he'll purify himself, and intend for the sake of and eating the tree of knowledge. And it wasn't for only if you haven't done all that, then God commanded him not to eat from the tree of knowledge. But he did. He ate from the tree of knowledge, even though God had commanded him not to. So here we need to explain what the sages of blessed memory said. Adam HaRishon min haya. Adam HaRishon was a idol worshipper. That's what Rashi says. Haya notel avodat kochavim u'mazalot. He wanted to worship idols. ויש לשאול השאלה, we need to ask, איך אפשר לומר לאדם הראשון שאמין? How could you say that the first man was an idol worshipper? בו בזמן שדיבר עם הבורא, he was the one who spoke to God in the garden. אלא לפי שאנו לומדים, עניין אמונה נקרא שאדם מאמין למעלה מהדעת. But it's what we learn. The issue of having faith means that a person believes even when his logic says different. לכן, therefore, כיוון שהוא בעצמו שמע מהבורא שלא לאכול מעץ הדעת, since he himself had heard from the Creator not to eat from the tree of knowledge, לא שייך כאן לומר שצריך להאמין על הציווי של הבורא. Doesn't even have to believe the commandment of God. אלא הפירוש יהיה, לאחר שבא אליו הנחש, ונתן לו להבין בתוך הדעת, שמה שהבורא אמר לו שלא לאכול, הוא רק באכילה לתועלת עצמו, מה שאין כן באכילה על מנת להשפיע נחת רוח להשם יחפוץ בוודאי הבורא. But what it means is that once the snake had come to him and given him to understand with his mind, with his knowledge, with his logic, okay, that what God told him not to eat is only if he was eating it for his own self. But if he was eating it for the sake of giving pleasure to God, then surely God will be happy with that. Then what Adam HaRishon should have said to the snake, okay, even though from my logic, my knowledge, I can see that what you're saying is right, that if I were to eat from the tree of knowledge out of the intention for the sake of giving pleasure to the Creator, then God might have pleasure from that. Mikol makom, never mind, I'm going to go with my faith. I'm going to believe in what God told me. And I want to fulfill the command of God without looking to see if it makes sense or not. In other words, we need to fulfill the mitzvot from the place that, because they are given to us from God, and not from the place of whether they make sense or don't make sense. And this is, in my view, this is such an important point here, because in our modern day, when we're faced with so much technology and so much logic and so much rationale, you know, it's even going into artificial intelligence now, that we need our faith more than ever, okay? That we need to fulfill the commands of God, whether not from the place of logic. I mean, some of the commandments do make sense, all right? Obviously, don't steal, don't murder, things like that. But there are others which don't have that aspect, okay? Like the chukim, what's called a chok, okay? But all of them, we need to do from the place of emunah, okay? Why emunah? What is emunah? Emunah is something we give. Okay, logic is something we receive. Emunah is something we give. You have to give to emunah. And it's difficult because it's hard to keep giving. It's against our nature. But nevertheless, we have to believe that the way of belief that God gave us is the right way for us. Okay, it's the best possible way. We need to fulfill the commands of God, not looking at whether they make sense or not. Just go for giving, okay? Because if you add to the aspect of faith and you want to go in the way of knowledge, this is what the sages mean that Adam HaRishon was inclining to idol worship. Because basically what you're saying is, well, God told me to go in faith, but I know better. Okay, so it's kind of like worshipping yourself. All right, and it's such a subtle point in our modern day. It really is. And I'm really glad that Rabbi Ashlag wrote this article for us, because I think we need it more than ever, all right, to really go with emunah, go with faith, okay? That's why we need the Torah mitzvot, and that's why we need the great tzaddikim to teach us what they are, okay? Adam HaRishon alach v'osif al ma shetzivah lo Borei. So Adam HaRishon went and added to what the Creator had already commanded him. Al zeh amru she'Adam HaRishon min haya, and this is why they said that the first person, the first human being, was a idol worshipper or something like that. ועל ידי החטא הזה נמשכה לנו הסתרה בעבודה. And it's because we are the children of Adam HaRishon. Okay, so we come from him, what he caused, we are still part of. So it's through this sin, we have the problem of the light of God is hidden in our service. And this causes us a tremendous difficulty, that we have to serve God without having the experience of the light of God. We have to just be giving, okay, even though we don't experience. And this makes it very difficult for us. It really does. Because it makes it very hard for us to let go of our selfish love, okay, of our egoism, because our egoism works through logic, through receiving, okay? We've got two aspects of egoism. One is sensual pleasures that we like to sense, like to feel, like to sense, okay, get pleasure that way. And the other one is the mind, okay? We like to know, we like to handle our lives from a place of knowledge. It's very difficult for us to go from a place of faith. So ממילא קשה להאמין בהשגחתו יתברך בבחינת טוב ומיטיב, and it makes it much more difficult for us to believe in God's providence, the aspect that he is good and does good, because so often we see things which look to us the opposite, and we absolutely have to have tremendous faith that everything that is happening is good, okay? And I think this year more than ever, with the big balagan that's happening in the country, with so much anti, we have to somehow say, with everything that's happening, God is running the show, and therefore he is good and does good, and just hold on to that, okay? באופן שיהיה לנו כוח לתת לו שבח והודאה לכל הדברים שאדם מרגיש שהם רק טוב. So it brings us that we should have the power and strength to give God praise and thanks over all the things that we feel, that ultimately all is good. וחיסרון זה של אמונה בהשגחתו יתברך, שהוא מנהיג את עולמו בבחינת טוב ומיטיב, גורם לנו שאנו כל כך מורחקים מהבורא. And actually, it's the lack of faith in God's providence, that he actually is the one who's running the world in the aspect that he is good and does good, that causes us to be separated from him. כי האדם יכול לשמש ולעשות מעשים אפילו שהם למעלה מכוחו, אם מרגיש למי הוא עובד. Because a person is able to serve and to do incredible deeds, even beyond his own strength, if he could feel who he's working for. אבל כל זמן שעדיין אדם נמצא בעבר עצמית, אין אדם מסוגל להגיש את מציאותו יתברך. But so long as we've still got our basic framework of our egoism, is the basic way we're looking at the world, that's the Yvonne, that's the distortion that we talked about earlier. אין אדם מסוגל להגיש את מציאותו יתברך. That's the Avon which causes us not to be able to feel the reality of God. כפי שדרוש שתהיה לאדם אמונה בקביעות. It's necessary that we come to faith, and we start off with a bit of faith here and a bit of faith there, and it goes up and down like a yo-yo, okay? And gradually, by practicing and practicing and practicing, hopefully we will get to a stage where we have faith as our main way of functioning and not just in bits, okay? But we have to start off where we start off, okay? Everybody has to start where we start, okay? And Rabbi Ashlag certainly talks about partial faith, okay? It's in the introduction to the Talmud Sfirot. He talks about partial faith, okay? You can't start off with, you've got to start where we start, okay? So you can't start off with full faith. It's something we need to work on, okay? You start off and you do a bit and you let go, and you do a bit and let go, and you do a bit and let go, and gradually, you get rid of the avon, of the distortion that we think that we know and we need to control our lives. In fact, it's God who's controlling everything. וזה מה שכתוב בהקדמת ספר הזוהר, וזה לשונו, בעת שאדם מרגיש רע, איני באותו שיעור שוהה בו כפירה. When a person therefore is feeling bad, that to the same measure, the blasphemy, he's actually blaspheming against God. Okay, not sort of like big talk blasphemy. I didn't mean that word. I meant more like he's denying the reality of God running the world. Okay, so if he's feeling bad, okay, he's not having faith that God that God is running everything and God is actually good. Okay, and this is what happens before we're in affinitive form. Because it's in fact, it's a rule that a person cannot, that a created being cannot actually receive anything bad from God, anything which is actually bad. Because if that was the case, then that would be a defect in God's glory, that the created being can attain him as functioning as doing something bad. This is not appropriate to the perfect creator. Now, Rabbi Gottlieb explains this a little bit more clearly. He says, how can a person have affinity of form if he hasn't yet got faith in the creator? Okay, so the answer is like this. There is two aspects of faith. First of all, we have to build the vessel for faith. What's the vessel for faith? The vessel for faith is, I want to be able to have faith. That's the vessel for faith, okay? Very often we use it, okay? And we go back to our egoistic way of being, all right? But each time that we do that and we realize where we've gone, we realize how separate we've gone, it wakes up again a desire for faith, all right? So we actually first of all need to work on just the desire for faith, all right? So the first thing is to build the desire for having faith in God and having that connection with him through faith. And then when we've actually built the vessel for desire for faith, then we actually come to receiving the light of God in faith. We actually receive the light of faith, okay? The actually ability to truly give to God through faith. So it's now we can understand why Adam, the first one, was driven out from the Garden of Eden into the world where God's light is hidden. Well, did God drive him out? In a way, he drove himself out, okay? And the Garden of Eden is not a place anywhere. It's a consciousness within ourselves, okay, where the light of God is present. And we also have the consciousness where the reality that we can feel is that the God's light is hidden. So as a consequence, all the generations which come following Adam have a big work. We need to believe that there is a creator of the world, one who conducting the world. And that he conducts the world in the absolutely best possible way, that he is good and does good. And the cause of all the sins, of the mistakes, of the eventually the avonot, all come from that we don't believe that God's providence is good and does good. That's the root cause of all the sins. Okay? That's what he's telling us here. That's fascinating. Okay. And basically what it means is we think we know better. That's the reality, okay? We think we know better. I was listening to, I haven't finished listening to it. It was a lovely shiur by Rabbi Gottlieb, in which he said, he was talking about that list of confessions that we say when we make confessions all throughout Yom Kippur, and every single prayer that we do in Yom Kippur, starting from Mincha, Erev Yom Kippur, you've got Mariv, you've got Shacharis, Musaf, Mincha, Ne'ilah, five whole sets, okay? And we do these confessions. And Rabbi Gottlieb was saying that it's not the what's written in the prayer books, in the Machzor, is not the prayer itself. Very interesting. The prayer itself is what comes from our heart. That's the prayer. What's written in the Machzor or the prayer book, wherever, the Siddur or whatever, is a skula. It's a I don't know how to translate skula, a virtue to help us come to be able to open our hearts and pray with our hearts. That's what it is. So the work of prayer, and prayer is an absolute work, is not just to say these prayers off as rote, okay, but to try to see how I feel, how I connect, how each one of us connects, okay, and we're all going to be different, okay, how each of us connect with the prayer, all right. So the skula, the men of the Great Assembly who made the prayers, made them because they help us open to the soul, open to our ability to pray, and open up, help us open up. But we need to be able to open, we need to be ready to open up to prayer, okay, and not just, sing the songs or say the words, okay, without that connection with ourselves, all right? So what he's saying here is that the cause of all our sins, okay, actually comes from the fact that we are not working with faith, all right? So it has to be a personal thing, that we need to really look at our work in faith, our prayer in faith, okay, and to actually use our faith to also open ourselves up when we're praying. So because of the iniquity, the distortion that happened in the thinking of Adam Rishon, the first human being, is drawn to us, to Adam, the aspect of Ahavas Mit, the selfish love. And this is why we find it very difficult to take upon ourselves the yoke of faith. Okay? We find that it all stems from this first stumble. שהאדם הראשון נפל לבחינת אהבה עצמית. The first human being fell in the aspect of selfish love. זה גרם לדורות הבאים אחריו, and this caused the generations who are coming after him also. שיש להם כבר עבודה על עניין אמונה בפשטות. So now we've got to work on simple faith, okay? היות שבזמן שאדם נמצא באהבה עצמית, because when we're in our selfish state, okay, חלליו הצמצום והסתר. We can't see that of God at all. שאינו העליון יכול להאיר לו. The light of God just simply isn't shining for us. We can't see it. ומשום זה אין אדם יכול להאמין בהשם. We can't believe in God. It's very difficult. The only way we can believe in God is למעלה מהדעת, using the vehicle of faith. And what happens is when we're not using the vehicle of faith, the will to receive causes us to deny the reality of God. And how do we actually know that we're in denial? When we're feeling sad. When we're feeling sad, okay, because the sadness is coming from our will to receive for ourselves alone. Now, I don't mean to say that nobody ever feels sad. I'm quite sure that Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag also had moments. What I mean is that we have a moment of sadness, okay, and sorrow, all right? But even to say that the sorrow is only from the aspect that God himself has thrown me out of his presence. Okay, we can't feel we've got to have the faith that everything that happened during the year, that we did during the year, actually also came from God. Okay, that's the point. So that we don't say, well, I have this individual decisions. I made decisions which were wrong, and it was me who made them. That's the will to receive for ourselves alone. Okay, that's the error. The error. They got to have belief. Got to have belief that it's God himself who's running the world, and before an action, we need to know that we've got complete free choice. Whatever feel is appropriate, that whatever we try to do, we need to have free choice. After the action, we do have to say that was what God wanted to happen, because he is the only one who's running the world. And if we've done a sin, then our sorrow is only from the fact that we caused us not to be in the presence of God. That's where the sorrow comes from, but not to be to maintain sadness. And then we go back to the joy that we are connecting with God. And so even when we're sad that we've sinned, we're actually maintaining our basic happiness that we are connecting with God, if that makes any sense. Okay, so we don't lose our connection with God even when we're talking about sins. Okay. נמצא שהכישלון של האדם הראשון בחטא של עץ הדעת גרם לנו שאין לנו אמונה. We find that it was the first stumble of Adam HaRishon in the sin of the tree of knowledge which caused us not to have faith. ממילא מזה באים כל החטאים, and from this comes all the sins that we said, all the mistakes and so forth. לכן אין עצה אחרת אלא לזכות לבחינת אמונה. So what do we have to do? We have to work to get the aspect of faith. שתהיה לאדם הרגשת אלוהות באופן פרטי. That we as individuals get the feeling of connection with God as individuals. Okay? שלא יהיה נצרך לכלל. Okay? כלומר שלא תהיה לו אמונה מבחינת הכלל ישראל. Not talking about the sort of basic faith that comes from being in the community, but each one of us needs to do shuvah. We need to do shuvah to the measure that we reach the feeling that God himself is looking after us, is the one who's running our world, who is has hashgacha pratit for us, is really concerned in us. And we actually have to have total faith in that. And that's what we really have to work on, that we come to feel the connection with God as an individual. And in this way, we can rectify the defect of the sin of the tree of knowledge. And in this way, we can explain why he tells us that our shuvah needs to reach up to your God. שאמר על פי השכל, מהי כוונתו יתברך, לכן אדם מוכרח לעשות תשובה עד שיזכה לבחינת השם אלוקיך באופן פרטי, לא להיות נמשך אף אחד. So the stumbling happened because we were listening to, or man listened to, Adam listened to the counsel of the snake, and he told him, use your intelligence, use your logic, and he said, according to your logic, this is what God wants. So what Rabbi Ashlag is saying here, a person needs to do shuvah till he merits the aspect of to your God, that we make that personal connection with God. Okay, and you're not going to be drawn after anybody else's way. We've got to find our own way. Okay. זאת אומרת שלא יסתכל לאיזה מטרה שאליה האדם מבחינת הכלל שואף להגיע. Doesn't need to look at what the general klal in the Beit Knesset is doing, but we need to do the shuvah, a personal shuvah, till we can reach God. So this is, again, very much fits in with what Rabbi Gottlieb was saying on that shiur I was listening to, that just to say the words because all the community is saying the words doesn't do it, okay? And the sages have told us that if you only say a bit, but you actually can feel it in your heart and you mean it, that actually does more than if you saying the whole thing. Now, all those words were written down for us to say, okay? And it's a tremendous work for the individual to actually be able to, concentrate and connect with all those tremendous amount of prayers. I mean, the book is thick, okay? There's a lot of stuff in there, all right? But all I can say is that the more we can use the prayers that are laid down to us, whether they are psukim, whether from the Torah, or whether they are psalms, or whether they are confessions, whatever they are, okay, if we can make them as personal as possible, that is the tshuva, okay? That's the real tshuva, all right? So that when we're davening, we need to use those as the springboard to get inside. That's what it's about, okay? And if the community is going on a little bit ahead, there's times when we just need to sort of do our own thing. And there's times when we just skip over and catch up with where they are together. All right. And, one balances, one does the balance. All right. But it's really important. What he was saying is that we need to make it personal. And this is what he's saying here as well, that our faith needs to be personal faith and our tshuva needs to be personal tshuva. Okay. וזהו כמו שכתוב, פרקתם על התלמוד 10 ספירות, אמנם אחר שרואה השם יתברך, שאדם השלים את מידת יגיעתו והתחזקותו באמונות השם יתברך, אז עוזר להשם יתברך. However, when God sees that a person has labored to make the vessel for in faith in God, he's trying to have faith in God, he's doing everything he can to bring that about, then God helps him. And he actually acquires the faith. And he merits to attain God's divine providence, to actually believe that God is good and does good. And he's able to believe that in a real way. And that's the light of faith, which is Gilui Panim. And when he could truly believe that everything that God does is right and good and is only for the good, then he merits to complete shuvah. That's amazing. He again is able to be one with God with all his heart, his soul, and his might. Okay, because he truly believes that everything that's happening to him is only good. All right? That's the tshuva shlema. Now that's amazing. Okay? And like I say, I think this is really, it really spoke to me, this article, because I think what's happening now in the country is so difficult. All right? And it's painful. And we've really got to have the faith that what is happening is right, is good. Because if it's happening, then God is causing it to happen. How far is tshuva? Until the one who knows all secrets, that's God, testifies that a person is not going to fall back into his foolishness anymore. How, when is it a person completely sure that he merits to hold shuvah? Until God actually gives him the light of faith. So now we can explain the answer to what we asked. What does it mean, Ad Hashem Elokecha, that the tshuva has to reach to the Lord your God? That a person needs to try to do the tshuva, to do everything in his power to work with faith, to acquire faith, to do the tshuva, to absolutely understand that everything that came to him also came from God, okay? And to be, and to be sorry that we were working with our wills to see for ourselves alone. We were sorry we were working from the snake aspect, which is within us, okay? That we're using our logic, using our own seichel, rather than God's, okay? And then when we really created that vessel for faith, and tshuva, then God helps us. And we merit to the fact that we are able to believe in the divine providence, and that's called Gilui Panim. That we actually are able to see God as functioning as the individual, on an individual basis, that he's our personal, we have that personal relationship, okay? That we're able to merit in an individual way the revelation of the light of God. Okay. We've only got 5 more minutes. Let me just have a look and see if we can do this in 5 minutes, or maybe a little bit we can do. All right. We'll just get the idea, okay? And now we can explain what the sages explained, that Gdolat Shuvah Shemagat Ad Kisei Kavod, that how great shuvah is, that it reaches to the throne of glory. And what Rabbi Ashlag really talks about, Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag, a lot also, you can't actually correct anything unless you can see the problem. All right? We can't do the shuvah if we can't see the sin. Okay? We can't correct the evil if we don't see what it really is in its true light. Okay? All right? And when we actually see the true light of the evil within us, we really need to ask for help with it, because unless God helps us, we can't overcome our will to receive for ourselves alone. And so it's only when we can really see the extent of the evil within us that we're really able to pray with a true heart that God helps us. Okay? And the more we can see the extent of the evil, the greater our prayer is. All right? And he gives an example here, which I'll just tell you quickly. Like, for example, he gives somebody goes to the doctor and he says, I've got a temperature of 38. So the doctor gives him a little tablet of paracetamol or something, Acamol, sufficient for a temperature of 38. Okay. But then the doctor looks at this guy and he says, oh, you look worse than that. And he reveals to the person that he's actually got a temperature of 40. Okay. And he therefore needs a greater, a stronger drug or something. Okay. So we give a prayer depending on how much we feel how distant we've become. Okay. If we can really see how much we've been using our will to receive for ourselves alone, how much we've been using our egoism, how much we've been using our selfishness in opposition to the words of God, how much we can really see that, then we're really able to really ask for God. We're really able to pray to the maximum. Whereas if we don't really see how bad things are, okay, so we say this and we say that, but we don't really see it, we don't relate to it from ourselves, then we can't pray that prayer. And again, I think this is, this issue of the confessions I find very helpful, all right, to actually really look at the confessions and saying, if they apply to me, all right, and not say, oh, I never did this, or I never did that, or how can this possibly apply to me? And I certainly didn't do a whole list, all right. But that's actually not the case. The more we go into it, the more we see that, in fact, every single one of them does apply to us, okay? And the more we can see that, the more we can ask for help. The more we ask for help, the more we believe that the help is going to come, the more we can actually do the shuvah. And then the shuvah can reach up to the throne of glory. What's the throne of glory? That is, from what was hidden, kisoi, we get to kisei. From the fact that the light was hidden, that God's light was hidden, through its tikkun, we get to the kisei, where we can actually have the faith that God is present for us in our lives. That's the throne of God, and that he helps us. Okay? Great. Wonderful. Thank you very much for joining me today. Really thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gmar Chatima Tova, Shana Tova. Thank you so much.
Gemar Chatima Tova, Shana Tova. Really, it was a joy to learn together. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All the best. Thanks.
Yeah, Gemar Chatima Tova for all of us and for all of Israel. Amen.
Amen.
For all of Israel again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye-bye.
then. Bye.